Hi, Natalie. Thank you for joining me today. Would you like to introduce yourself to other listeners?
Absolutely. My name is Natalie. I'm the founder of WeSpoke, which was an organization I started almost 3 years ago because I had been for 6 years running a support group for women that were going through challenging divorces or separations from perhaps someone that's coercively controlling or narcissistic. And I really felt at that time, back in 2017, there wasn't the support that there is today and understanding. So I used to have little support groups in my home, and that kind of grew quite big.
Hmm.
And what I started hearing is as women decided to leave that relationship, they were then heading into the family court system, and I was just hearing all of these horror stories. I didn't go through that myself in family court. I actually never stepped inside a family court for myself, but I knew that what I was hearing, something was wrong and not right. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how the advocacy started in the support group, which was called Karuna. Um, Started, and then I ended up closing that support group last year and really going more full steam into the work at WeSpoke.
Right. And how do you advocate for women then? Do you support inside family courts or do you just support around the issues of family court?
Yeah, it's a great question. The idea behind WeSpoke really was that the women were all isolated and they thought that their experience was just their experience, which is intentional, I believe, of the courts.
Hmm.
So the women going through it just kind of felt like it was they had a bad judge, or it was just their county or their local court that this was happening. When they tried to explain it to other women, they were either not believed or thought they were exaggerating, or it can't be that bad, or you must have done something wrong. They don't
Yeah.
take children away from good mothers. The stories continue and the myths.
Yeah.
So the idea behind We Spoke was bringing the women together. If women come together, we can do great things. We can
Yeah.
support each other, but also then kind of compare notes. Women talking is a good thing always. It has been for millennia.
Hmm.
So as long as we're isolated, that just perpetuates the issue and the problem. So bringing the women together, let them talk and communicate, meet, create kind of a sisterhood. And then from that, women can do what they want. So we don't ourselves, we're not pushing any legislation, we don't have our own agenda. We're more responsive when we see things. We respond as a group, but it's a collective. So it's not just me behind this.
Yeah. So is it campaigning as well that you do?
Well, we do put campaigns out there, again, initiated from some of our members that say, hey, I think this would be good if we did this. Sure, let's run with that. We're doing a campaign right now called Family Court Tyranny. And it's really, again, to call the family court system and everything that goes on in it, we're calling it out as it is. So women submitted their stories from mainly the US, but we do have women from Canada, England, and hopefully some Australians that are sending in.
Yeah, because it
And
is it is a global issue, isn't it?
yes,
It is absolutely a global issue. Do you
yes.
just want to? Because you're not actually in the UK, are you?
No, I'm in New York. I am from the UK, and I moved here when I was 17 to the US.
Are you dealing with victims of the family courts that are reaching out from the UK?
Yes, we do have some, not many. It's something, again, WeSpoke can really be an umbrella for whoever wants to be there, and learn from each other, help each other, in that kind of peer-to-peer support network. And it's not on Facebook. That was another thing. There's a lot of women that want their anonymity and don't want to have their pictures shown, or so within my platform that we work on, you can have a pseudonym. Everybody is screened to come into it, but
Hmm.
once you're there, yeah, you can be as anonymous as you want. And just a lot of women just don't even participate. They just read a lot and learn
Yeah.
from the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because they don't realise how many other women are actually going through this.
Right.
Um, I mean, I have one word to describe the family court, and that is barbaric. That is the
Yes.
only word that I can say that
Sure.
describes it. It
It goes right
is,
along with tyranny and barbaric, they're similar. And I think the when women start coming together and hearing another story or somebody else, that they can hear, a 90-second clip on the campaign we're doing, and say that's me, that happened to me exactly, but they're in
yeah,
another country. That helps the healing process, because it number one stops you feeling so isolated. It validates your experience, which so many women struggle with. Am I making this? Am I exaggerating it? Am I? Because they're hearing the voices around
it's
them.
gaslighting, isn't it,
Yeah.
Natalie? At the
Is
end of
he
the day,
is he as bad? Is he really as bad as I thought? Am I just reading too much about coercive control and now I'm applying it to my relationship? We ask those questions. We kind of do the inner work as women, right?
yeah.
So when you do hear that validation from credible women, from intelligent, educated women that also went through this, that's comforting. And I
So,
don't think we
so
can
in the
underestimate the power of that.
yeah, in the US, do they put the gagging orders in place to stop women actually speaking out about what is actually happening to them inside court arenas?
Yes, for very frequently. If you don't agree with what they're telling you is going to really roll out in your case, or if you bring up the abuse or child sexual abuse, um, if you question or say no to the judge or to any of the other court professionals, they will come down hard on women.
Yeah.
It's not the same for men. It's definitely a double standard there. And that's something I do want to talk about today with your
Yeah,
listeners.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've sort of I did ask you, didn't I, before we recorded some specific issues that you wanted to focus on,
Mm,
and we've got some sort of bullet point questions that we want to try and get across to the listeners so that we can create that awareness, because this platform is so that the voices can be heard. This
hmm
isn't right that this is happening in secrecy. Um, and like we both said, it is happening globally, and
hmm
it is just nothing ceases to amaze me
Me
what
neither.
actually goes off in these courtrooms. And it is all covered up, it's all in secret. Um, yeah, so the first question would be the similarities of an abusive relationship and the family courts.
Yes. So that's something I noticed pretty early on in this, or my journey in this area, because the courts seemed as if they were an extension of the abusive relationship. Um, and when I say abusive relationship, that doesn't always mean physical violence, as we know. Um, a lot of women can experience, a toxic relationship where it's just not, there's a lot in it that's not right, and they are, you know, they're being oppressed and controlled or manipulated.
Mhm.
And so what happens in the court is that then becomes really an abuser's playground.
Yeah.
They love the attention. these men in these courts, they have a platform finally. They have validation. They feel comfortable in these courts, and they realize, oh, I can say certain keywords and they're all going to be behind me, and I can make it look like I am really the victim here and there's something wrong with her. So Darvo, as we know,
Yeah.
happens a lot in the courts. So, like I talked about earlier, was the isolation. In a abusive relationship, you are isolated. Many times they'll be like, "Oh, we have to move to a new city because of my job," and you upload the kids and you upheave the kids and you move to a new city, and then once you start making friends and connections there, oh, we've got to transfer again to, and we're going to, Dubai for 2 years or wherever they want to place you. And they pluck you out of your friends, your family, your support network in the relationship. And so the courts are really doing that as well. They do that through things like gag orders. They're really
Mm-hmm.
shutting you down. You're not allowed to talk about this on social media. You can't post about it. Um, I've known a couple of women here in the US that have done 30 days in jail for posting about their cases. And what that does is it's not only oppressing that particular woman, but it's sending a message to all women.
Mm-hmm.
Don't speak up, be quiet, go along with our narrative, or this can happen to you.
Yeah. And it leaves some women suicidal.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. In
It,
fact,
it's
yeah.
it is horrendous what the punishment and the torture that they are basically enabling abuse to continue. It's almost as though they're helping perpetrators on their way to be able to finish you off, basically, because that is what it ultimately feels like.
Yeah.
You've already endured probably more often than not some of the worst experiences that you ever imagined could
Hmm.
happen to you, and then you're faced with a system that basically enables that perpetrator to finish the job off, basically. Women are
Absolutely.
left women are left broke. They are
Yeah.
left financially broke. They're left emotionally broke.
Hmm.
Um, and all this is happening to them in secret, and they can't speak about what is going on.
Hmm.
And then they wonder why it has an impact on their mental health.
Sure, sure. So many. I did a survey 2 years ago when we first started WeSpoke, and that we hope to publish the results next year. And 1,000 women submitted and participated in the story from all over the world, and so many women were diagnosed with a health condition, not even mental health, but
Mm,
health condition, a serious one,
yeah,
either during their long litigious case or after that. This is affecting women,
yeah,
and yes,
100%. There
yeah,
is very much a significant link with trauma and physical health issues like
mhm,
autoimmune diseases,
yes,
um, things like rheumatoid arthritis. There is that pattern that seems to follow the trauma, and the trauma continues then through the court system, doesn't it?
yeah. And our children are an extension of us, so that trauma, they're feeling what we're feeling.
Mhm.
It's like osmosis. We all learned about that in biology when we were growing up. But there's a transfer of cells, but there's a transfer of energies and emotions and trauma. And there's intergenerational trauma, where that trauma is carrying down that line. And so one thing is like, well, what can we do to stop that now so I don't pass that on to my child? am I doing my healing work in whatever way I can, so that my child, as much as I can, protect them not to receive and inherit that trauma that I'm going through. But the courts, yeah, they're absolutely enable. They are, I believe, perpetrate the abuse themselves by
Yeah.
wearing down, as you say, women are broke in all different ways, but they really wear them down to be a fraction of themselves when they
Yeah.
leave that system, compared to how they walked into that.
Mm-hmm.
And we do go into these courts with the belief and the faith in the system and in our judiciary, in the attorneys, lawyers, the child protective agencies. We believe all women go in, and that's why I think it's absolutely blindsided
Yeah.
when these things start to happen. You cannot believe it. You
They
cannot
have
believe
no,
what's happening.
I know, and they have absolutely no idea what they're going to be faced with. And I think the actual shock of, I want to say probably the first hearing that you're
Yeah,
that you're in, from that moment, it's just like, how can this even be possible? How
yeah,
can this even be possible? I mean, going back to the trauma, my youngest son he is diagnosed with complex child development trauma.
mm,
And that actually, it's not very well recognized in children.
right,
But yeah, that was sort of dismissed through family courts. They never like took it upon themselves to think, why has this child got complex development trauma?
yeah,
It didn't even get taken into account.
no,
But they were pushing contact
yeah,
with a child that did not want to have contact, which was causing further trauma. And I'm not just talking weeks, I'm talking years
oh,
of that
for sure.
continuous, yeah. Because
Oh, or
once you're
for
trapped in that
lifetime.
system,
Hey,
yeah,
your child could have that for lifetime and navigate that as a
yeah,
direct result from these courts. And quite honestly, Debbie, the courts, they go under the guise of, we're doing what's in the best interest of children. You know, we are all, you can't say that, you can't do that because there's children involved. They all talk
mm,
about the children, but they don't ever want to hear directly from the children.
no,
Very rare to get a child to be able to come in and say and articulate what they want. So they keep a big buffer to not have them, because they know that the child's really going to come in, not coach, just come in and tell their truth, and it's not going to go well. It's obviously going to shine the light on what's going on with their father. So they don't have the children in, but they also don't really care about the outcomes. They just go on to the next victim walking through that courtroom door. So where's the studies, of, let's say we'll do a 2-year pilot in the family court in this town or whatever. Let's see, and we're going to monitor those children for the next 2 years, and that mother and the father. Sure, why not throw them in?
mm,
And let's see how everybody's thriving. How are they doing? We're gonna evaluate to see if our decision making in these courts under the best interest
mm.
is really helping children. They don't do it.
No, no. I mean, my view on the family courts, and I've openly said it, that is that they basically need opening up. They need
Hmm.
opening up to scrutiny. Because I think if that was the case and there were no secrecy around it, I think we'd see a different picture from what we're seeing at the moment. Um, it just absolutely amazes me that this is even allowed to happen. Um, it really does.
Well,
But why
well,
do
that
you
leads
think? Why do?
really, yeah.
Yeah, that leads on to my next question, doesn't it? So what?
Exactly. So
Yeah. So
why does it
why?
happen?
Yeah.
Right. Why? And you know, again, being in this space for a few years now, I've heard a lot of different reasonings and beliefs. maybe even ideologies of why it's happening. And it can, they range from it's child trafficking. That's at the root of it. These courts are just a vehicle to traffic children into, pedophilia rings and sexual exploitation rings. It's corruption. The whole thing is corrupt. They're all making money on it. So this is just a big way to, fund all of these judges and this multi-billion-pound or billion-dollar industry. So there's that side of it. There's when I hear all the different reasonings, and I'm not saying any one of them is wrong. I think there's parts of all of it, but I think fundamentally, at the foundation of it all, it is a gendered issue, and I think it is the oppression of women. It is the ongoing violence against women, and that is what the court is just a branch of. There are many ways women are oppressed in our world or exploited, and women's rights as a sex class, as we gained rights, significantly over the last 100 years,
Mm-hmm.
that has really kind of bumped up against the patriarchal norms that have been around for centuries, and they don't like it. So they find ways to reduce women's rights, to take them away. And what better way than to do what matters most to women, which is their children. Go after their children, and you will ultimately send a message to all women. Don't mess with the patriarchy, because we're going to use this kind of legal avenue to hurt you and oppress you until you all line up and comply. And it's pretty scary.
Mm.
And I think, having that feminist lens is important, because if you honestly believe that if just this one law, if we pass this law or this bill, and we get that, if we just train these judges and train the attorneys and train everyone involved to understand the dynamics of abuse, coercive control, narcissism, then that's it. It's great. Or we're going to reform it some other way. And I think that is very naive, because that is not the issue at hand. It is ultimately men's entitlement and male privilege and control over women, power and control over women.
Yeah. Which is what we've tried to leave in the first place: money, power, and control, isn't
Yeah,
it?
right.
And that's what we're
Right.
faced with afterwards. I have seen women come out of those courtrooms screaming.
Yeah.
Screaming, and it is horrendous. I mean, I've sat inside these courts. I've sat inside and heard how some, not all, some judges speak to victims. And I think that we wouldn't be sending soldiers back into a battlefield, would we,
No.
that have got PTSD?
Right.
So why are women having to face these court arenas when and I go to these courts supporting other women, and I still get that sick feeling in pit of my stomach,
Of course.
and I don't think that'll ever leave me. It doesn't matter how many times I have to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, it is
They're not friendly. They're not friendly environments to women. Most women don't feel comfortable at all stepping into any courtroom. But specifically, family courts are they're very hostile. They create and nurture this environment of hostility, of domination. I actually just went to criminal court yesterday for a family member that I was supporting in their criminal case, and I was shocked how lovely it felt there. I know that sounds crazy,
Mm,
but from the minute walking in, everybody, all of the court professionals were so respectful. So you have all the litigants, all the criminals as such coming, even the ones that are in jail, and they bring them out handcuffed before the judge. You have the judge, you have the district attorney pressing the charges, you have all the lawyers representing. Everyone's there. It's all open. Everyone's there. They are so respectful and so compassionate. They treat every litigant, not litigant, but accused person going up on the stand with such dignity and respect. It was shocking how different it is if you go up 5 floors to the family court, and the difference of that environment there.
mm,
So I don't know how it is in England, but maybe go into a criminal court and see if you notice a difference too.
mm. I think it's for me. I think the hearings, or the majority of hearings, should be remote. I think a lot of the time, victims are put through unnecessary, um, even sometimes for the hearing to be adjourned. They've
Mm,
still had to go through that process leading up to it. And it is that leading up to it as well. Days coming
mhm.
up to that hearing.
Oh, yeah.
It is
Can't
just like,
sleep, you can't eat, you have an upset stomach. It's
yeah,
traumatizing to every part
yeah,
of your body and mind.
yeah,
This is
it
not
is.
where we want to be. It was, whereas I'm pretty sure the narcissists and abusers are looking forward to it. They can't wait, you know?
I've never seen, um, I've never seen a perpetrator look worried or scared, um, in a family court.
Me neither.
Um, so it's, I don't know. I think that the the pressure that they put mothers under,
Mhm.
um, just from even from, I mean, I don't know what equivalent would you have to Kafkas in the US.
Yes, no, I'm familiar with Kafkas, but it would be like this child protective agencies here. So Department of Children and Families, it could be DCF, CPS, and they're not good news, the same as Kafkas.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is a way forward? I mean, like I said to you,
Mm,
my view is that I think they need to be opened up, and I think that's probably a massive difference between the family court and the criminal court.
mm-hmm,
Uh, because I think there'd be a lot of scrutiny, wouldn't there, and a lot of
for
raised
sure.
eyebrows if there were judges or members of staff being rude to victims, or
Mm-hmm,
and that is my opinion, and we're all entitled to them, and everybody has
mm-hmm,
different views around this subject. um but I think that, for me, would be the way that this would kind of, because for me, I think there needs to be a massive public inquiry. It is an absolute
agreed.
scandal. It is
Agreed.
a global scandal.
Right. Absolutely agree. The transparency factor is a big part. Here in the US, we have bailiffs. Do you have something similar in the UK? So, like the
Um,
court, somebody that they usually have a weapon, and they're making sure there's order in the court. The judge is protected. Do you have a?
we we would be, so it's a bit like going through an airport as you're
Mm-hmm.
entering the courts.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
you
Same.
are metal detected,
Yes.
emptied your bags, check your pockets, all of that kind of thing.
Do you have a guard inside the room? Some kind of guard or no?
Um, yeah, there is security inside the rooms, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, But
So
yeah,
what
it's
we've observed, you know, the bailiffs, uh, or court security, you know, lunch death staring to the women, death like being intimidating, going over and kind of lunging over um, when they're on the stand or have to speak. It's very, very frightening for a woman.
mm,
And these are usually very well built security type guards, pretty scary looking.
mm,
It's not friendly. Again, comparing it to a criminal court, they were just so nice walking in. They were friendly, speaking, chatting, everything. The whole tone was completely different in criminal court. And that should be the ideal in family court, even more so because of the types of cases and understanding and knowing that there's abuse cases there and the trauma involved. There's no trauma informed lens being used by anyone.
no,
So,
no.
transparency, yes, to open them up, to have them open to journalists. I know you've got a study, I think a 2-week study that's happening this month in the UK where journalists, it's going to be open court and they're going to be able to write about family court cases. Hopefully that's successful.
But what my concern is with that is that they're probably cherry picked cases, and
Mm.
are we going to get to see the reality of what actually happens or
No,
has
not
been
unless
happening?
they're all open. They would have to be all opened. And, you
Yeah,
know, why do they seal the courtrooms or, you know, not allow people in? It's all under that guise again of in the best interest. We're talking about child abuse or sexual abuse allegations. So yeah, we're sealing this courtroom, but all that does, you know, is just allow that secrecy to
mm,
go on for one person in a black robe to make all these decisions, life altering decisions for these women and children with no accountability. Are they
no,
being reviewed? Is someone going over every judge, reading every transcript? Of course they're not.
no.
And here in
I've
the
heard,
US,
I've heard, I've heard judges say they've not had time to read the bundles.
yeah, yeah. Here in the US, you have to pay for that. You have to pay if you want the testimony transcript. Um, and
Yeah,
it's a lot
yeah,
of money.
yeah,
For most
yeah. You've
women
got,
who have no
yeah,
access
you're,
to funds, you can't pay
yeah,
for that.
exactly, exactly. But we've had it where a perpetrator has actually um, admitted something in the family court, but yet it can't be used as evidence
Hmm.
for criminal court, and
Hmm.
that is just insane.
Right. Why aren't the courts talking to each other? Why aren't they all working? I'm sure you're familiar with Marianne Hester out of not Birmingham, where is she? Bristol University, and she talked about the 3 planets, and it really just explains that. I'll send it to you afterwards.
Yeah, send
It
it
really
me.
explains like the criminal court, the family court, and the child protective, and how they're not aligned. How
No,
why aren't they talking to each other? And
none of them.
we got to keep the perpetrator away from the children because he's dangerous. But in family court, we want to reunite them. We want to put them together. You know, you can't get in the way of that child and the father. It's not making any sense. And
No,
I think that's overall, that's one thing that is baffles me. Just where is the moral compass of all of the people involved in this? All
I
of
know,
them.
I know,
What's
because
happened to humanity?
exactly, exactly, and it's as though literally nobody cares.
Yeah,
Nobody
I
cares.
think you're spot on. They pretend to care, but they don't care. They really don't care.
Some
Because
of
if
them
they
don't.
did,
Some of
they
them don't
wouldn't be
even
doing.
pretend. Some of them don't even
Yeah,
pretend, Natalie.
yeah.
And I think it's extremely sad that it's come to where we live in a world where ultimately it just seems as though just nobody gives a shit, basically.
Right.
And that is how it feels, I think, when you're trying to navigate the system. Every which way you turn as a victim, the odds are absolutely stacked against you. And they are literally setting women up to fail.
Yeah,
You can read it like a book. You can just see what's coming, can't you? Because it follows the same pattern.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
No,
it's
it's
awful.
very disheartening, and so many women feel helpless, and clue up very quickly, like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this.
Mm.
I have no money to try to, no one's listening to what I'm saying. Everything's falling apart. I have nowhere to live right now because I was kicked out of my house, or, the situations that women are being forced into.
Mm.
It's a crisis, a public health crisis. We should all be worried, the community at large, not just people going through this.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where we need to cross over out of the, protective mother communities, or even just people within the family court system. And we have to reach out into the mass public.
Yeah.
That's where when there's outrage there, that's where things will shift
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. And
And we're not
that's
there yet.
why this is why I keep doing these podcasts, and this is why
Mm-hmm.
I keep trying to, keep get that out there and keep collaborating and speak to as many victims, survivors, and professionals as possible, because literally everybody that I kind of have interviewed are all, singing from the same hymn sheet. And if, all it takes is for one person, the right person, to listen to it, that would back this and would support this, that could get it where, I don't know, it would be in mass, where women could all collaborate together, because as singular
Mm-hmm.
cases, this is not gonna,
Yeah,
complaints procedures and singular cases, they will not get any results whatsoever. They're just ignored, they're brushed under the carpet.
for sure.
um it has to be one mass, and I think we all have to insist on a public inquiry into this, because
Yes,
women have been children have been removed from their mothers, for sometimes no reason, no valid
right.
reasons at all. And what damage has that caused to them children's lives?
I don't think we really understand as a society what we're doing, the damage that these courts are doing. I don't think we're quite there yet, because the the human race is not supposed to have a motherless society. Children aren't supposed to be just raised out there by a father and a nanny or two. We're removing mothers from good mothers and loving mothers, from their children's lives, and that will affect everybody. And I don't think yet we're seeing some of it, but I don't think yet we're seeing the effects of that.
Mm.
I worked for 2 years with the International Coercive Control Conference, so we would do an online conference, and we really talked about that and had guests as far as we need to connect the dots. Coercive control in the home and coercive control out there in the world, whether it's in politics or the sexual exploitation of women. Start connecting all those dots. In the US, with firearms easily accessible, who are
Mm.
all these mass shooters? Did they go through a traumatic divorce or separation? Were they taken from their mother? We need to start kind of pulling back and looking and seeing what's going on to children as they grow up, that were removed from their mother. That is not nature. It is not nature. A child can grow up without a father. A child cannot grow up and should not grow up without a mother. It's a
Mm.
completely different bond, a maternal bond, than the father-child relationship. Um,
I
and yeah,
think I think that's I think that's a very brave thing to say, because
Mhm.
I think a lot are scared to say a lot of things these days
Of
for the
course. Yeah.
fear of, the backlash of what you can get. I mean, they're punishing, like we spoke, they are punishing people for social media and things like that.
No,
But
retaliation is real, absolutely real.
yeah,
And, women, they have to do what's right for them in their case at any given time. They
mm,
know their ex the best, they know their case the best.
yes,
And
yes,
this is not to say, hey, go out there and make the statements I'm making, because that they could be retaliated against. And there's no shame in holding back. You will have a time at some point. You will, this will pass. Your children will age out,
mm,
and you will have that freedom to speak.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah. And I think when when we look from first world countries to other countries, and we see the terrible things that are happening to women and the absolute oppression and what's going on in Afghanistan or Iran, how these women in Africa, the female genital mutilation is still happening there. We can kind of look and feel really separate from all of that and say, oh my God, thank God I live where I live. These poor women, can't they escape? Can't they get away? It's so oppressive. But we're right here in the US and in the UK and first world countries. And don't think for a second that what's happening now in these courts and what's happening to mothers and women is on a trajectory towards that kind of system. And it can happen faster than you think.
mm,
I think we've all seen those photographs of the Iranian women from the 70s walking around in skirts and laughing, and then saying now they're completely shielded. They're not allowed to even talk to each other. They can't hear another woman's voice. And it's shocking, but what are we talking about here today? You're not allowed to
mm,
talk. We're going to put a gag order on you. You're
yeah,
not allowed to speak about this.
yeah.
We're not
I
that
know,
far.
I know, I know.
We have,
It is
yeah,
unbelievable, and it's
yeah.
unbelievable that that the public do not understand or realize that this is the reality of what's happening.
They don't understand until they arrive there themselves.
Yes,
So
yeah,
they're fine as long as they're not going through a divorce or child custody. And
mm.
if, you know, would you or I even pay any attention to this if we hadn't
I
gone through
think
it,
I think if you've not gone through it, you would, and you was listening to somebody's case, you would really think that, oh, it's crazy, that don't happen. They must have
Yeah,
removed that
it's
child for a reason. They don't just
exactly,
remove children for no reason.
exactly.
Well,
Sure.
yes, they do. Yes, they
Right,
do.
right. And again, going back to that blindsided feeling of like, my world just imploded. I cannot believe I had all the evidence. I had this. This was going to be an open and shut case. I
Yeah.
would love my children to have their father in their life if he was healthy and if he was not hurting them or hurting me. But you go in and very quickly you realize, oh, they're going to act like this is neutral. He said, she said. They're coming in equally. So it doesn't matter what you say or what evidence you have. We're going to give him just as much credit, if not more credit, because women automatically have a credibility deficit when they walk into a courtroom, just because of their sex. Um, Men have that just more credibility and they're more comfortable. Women are nervous. They maybe have not slept or eaten right for days leading up to this. They're absolutely exhausted trying to prepare for it. They look disheveled, feel disheveled. They're scared, and his sounds great. Who do you think the judge is going to think? Well, he seems more like a stable parent than she does. Maybe she
Mm,
does have some undiagnosed mental illness, or maybe she does have a drinking problem. You know, they're going literally judging a book by the cover, and you're kind of raising your hand saying, no, 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 like, this is, you don't understand what he's did. I've got all the text here. Look how he's treating me. They don't want to
Yeah.
hear any of it.
No, they don't.
Right. So, you know, either it's going to be equal 50-50 or more custody, uh, or full custody to the
Yeah.
father, who seems as presenting very well in court. And that is, I think, what sends women, just they plummet down with apathy and realizing, I can't believe this is happening to me.
Yeah.
And then they lose their job, they lose their home, they lose their kids, they lose all
Yeah.
their money. Like, how do you recover from that?
Some don't,
Some don't.
sadly.
Yeah, yeah. And I do track that. There's a lot of different wonderful organizations tracking femicides in each of the respective countries, because the government certainly won't. They don't track the femicides. They don't want to actually put a number to how many women are being killed because they are women,
Mm.
at the hands of men. So I have started doing research and tracking the women that were killed or died by suicide, apparent suicide sometimes, when they were going through child custody litigation or divorce. So it's not specifically just an act of domestic violence. It's not she's leaving and he killed her. I'm looking down and researching, were they in divorce? Were they going through a divorce? Were they, can I look up court records and track them? Because I think we need to really start saying that these litigious, lengthy court child custody cases are a lethality risk for women.
Yeah.
I track them on my website. You can click the pictures and read about the women and about their
Yeah.
case. And it's I'll give a caution with that as well. It's heavy stuff. It's heavy
Yeah.
stuff to research it, and I feel connected to each of these women, but I honestly don't want them to die in vain. I want to recognize and honor them in a
Yeah.
space. I'm only doing this
Yeah.
for the US at the moment. Happy to partner with anyone who wants to. I could teach anyone from the UK that would like to
Interesting.
know
Yeah.
how, yeah, that can
Yeah.
also start tracking more of that.
Yeah. Right, Natalie, thank you so much. Thank you for
Sure.
speaking to me. It's been lovely to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you. I think, we didn't talk about the path forward, but really the biggest thing is really finding your sisters wherever they are. Find your network, your tribe.
Your tribe. I was just about to say,
Yeah,
find your
yeah.
tribe. Yeah.
It's so important, not only for your own healing and recovery,
Yeah.
but then because women are stronger together. We could be an advocate and have our own. We could launch our own new organization. That's fine. We can all do that, and there'll be lots of them. But
Mm-hmm.
then you're only as strong and powerful as that one. But when we come together
Yeah.
and unite, and then go forward, and then say, this is not just my case. Here's 100 cases. Here's 500 cases.
Yeah.
Here's the evidence. Then we have more power in numbers.
Yeah,
And that,
definitely.
yeah, I think, having that, and again, for anyone, understand and read about feminism and understand the layer of that's at play right here in this area.
Yeah.
It can't be ignored, otherwise it will continue to fester and grow.
Yeah. Well, keep in touch, won't you?
Yes, I
Keep
will.
me updated. And
Of
thank you
course.
again.
Thank you,
You take
Debbie.
you take care, Natalie.
You too. Okay, bye bye.
Bye.